This happened around a year ago, on a night that seemed normal at first but took a surprising turn. I had worked for 12 hours and finished my shift at 2 in the morning, feeling really tired. My car always had a problem with the right headlight, and it was getting frustrating, like a constant struggle. As I was driving home on a quiet country road, it was really dark and I could barely see anything. There were fields all around, and I was far from any houses or gas stations. Suddenly, I saw a police car parked on the side of the road with all its lights turned off. I got a bad feeling because I knew my car's headlight wasn't working well, and that could cause problems with the police. The police car behind me turned on its lights and followed me. After a bit, the red and blue lights started flashing, so I pulled over, getting ready for a talking to and probably a ticket. I turned off my radio, rolled down my window, and waited. The police officer, a guy in his late 20s or early 30s, muscular with light blonde hair, came over. He shined his flashlight right at me and told me about my broken headlight. I said sorry and told him I'd fix the issue quickly. He took my driver's license and registration, using his flashlight to look inside my car for anything strange. The officer went back to his car, and I nervously waited to see what would happen. I really didn't want a ticket because I couldn't afford it on my college budget. After a stressful 5 minutes, the bright light turned off, but the red and blue lights kept flashing when he came back. He gave me back my papers and suggested fixing the lights soon. I felt relieved, and then he surprised me by crouching down and leaning on my car window. In a serious voice, he asked about my plans for the night. I felt a little uncomfortable. I told him I was finishing work, not coming from or going to any parties. But he still seemed serious, and I started to get annoyed. He changed his position and moved his face closer to mine, which made me uneasy. I pointed to my work shirt and badge to show I was just trying to go home. The police officer surprised me when he suddenly asked, "Are you single?" I didn't understand why he was getting into my personal life. It bothered me, so I replied, "No, I have a boyfriend." Then he kept asking if my boyfriend treats me well. I was confused and annoyed, so I just said yes. He kept asking me questions, like whether I live alone or with my family. I told him I live with my boyfriend, and he wanted to know if my boyfriend was at home and waiting for me. Feeling irritated and not thinking straight, I blurted out that my boyfriend was out of town. The officer's face changed, and he seemed to be thinking about something. Then, I realized my mistake, and, with my heart racing, I quickly made up a story about my older brother visiting and expecting me back home soon. I felt relieved when he agreed and stood up. He told me to have a good night and fix the light. As I drove away nervously, I kept checking my mirror to make sure he wasn't following me. The weird encounter stuck with me even though I didn't get a ticket. About a week later, I talked to a coworker and found out she had a similar experience a few months ago. We compared the way the person looked, and we both thought it was the same officer. It made the story even more interesting. Now we wondered why the officer asked so many questions. As time went by, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was wrong. I began to think that the police officer might be hiding something. My coworker and I talked about checking into it and maybe telling someone about what happened. But since we didn't have solid proof, we were unsure if our concerns were serious enough to make a complaint. One day, something surprising happened. My colleague found a news article about a local police officer. The article talked about how the officer was stopping young drivers on quiet country roads and asking them lots of questions that didn't seem necessary. This worried people in the community. So there was an investigation happening to look into what the officer was doing. After reading the article, I got really nervous because I thought the police officer we met might be the one being investigated. The surprising part of the story made me feel both shocked and reassured. It helped me understand why the officer asked weird questions and why I felt uncomfortable during our late-night encounter. My coworker and I felt really determined, so we decided to tell the people in charge about what happened to us. Our stories were important evidence that helped build a case against the officer. As the investigation went on, more people spoke up, sharing their bad experiences with the same officer. The police officer got in trouble for doing something wrong, and the community felt better about it. The surprising part of the story showed that the officer did something bad and encouraged others to speak up. Thinking back to that night, I learned that unexpected things can reveal important truths. The experience taught me to trust my feelings and speak out against bad behavior, even when it's someone in charge. After that, I wasn't scared of running into the same officer on the country road. The headlights on my new car worked well, signaling a safer and happier journey ahead. My mom is a police officer who patrols the streets. She always goes to work with her partner because it's safer to have someone with you. But being a police officer on patrol is risky. You never know what kind of things you might have to deal with out there. Every day is different, and my mom has been doing this job for more than 5 years. She's faced some really tough situations during that time. Our town is usually quiet and safe, but sometimes unexpected things can happen. One day, my mom got a call about a man in our neighborhood who had a gun and was causing trouble. The neighbor called because the man had been acting strange for a few days. He believed his neighbor was seeing things from his time in the Persian Gulf during Desert Storm. So, my mom, who is a police officer, and her partner, Officer Jones, quickly went to the place. They parked their police car to block the road and stay a safe distance from the man's house. The houses in our neighborhood are not too close together, which is good because it helps keep neighbors safer. But there's a newer part of the neighborhood with a school behind the house and a daycare to the right. Mom and Officer Jones went towards the house to talk to the man inside. But as they got closer, the man started shooting at them. They quickly hid behind the police car for protection. Officer Jones got a shotgun, and my mom called for more help because her Glock wasn't good for shooting from that far away. More police cars came, but before they could do anything, the man came out of the house and started shooting wildly. He ran behind the house, still shooting, while the school bell rang, and a lot of middle school kids came out to the playground. A man who wasn't thinking clearly heard a bell ringing. He started running in a zigzag pattern while shooting a gun at the police. The police tried to protect themselves by moving behind trees and fences. Suddenly, a sad message came over the radio. One of the police officers had been hurt. 12 police officers knew they had to prevent the man from getting into the school area where many kids were playing. The paramedics in the background were asking important questions about who got hurt, if they were still alive, and how many people were injured. While I was driving, I got a bunch of text messages. The first one said my mom, who was the first person at the incident, got shot. I stopped at a gas station, feeling really scared that my mom might be hurt or in danger with the police. After a few minutes, I got another message saying the danger was over and the person causing trouble got shot, but there was still no news about my mom. I was really scared. Then, another message came: the person causing trouble was taken down and my mom was okay. But they mentioned that an officer was lost. I felt a bit better that my mom was okay, but I couldn't stop thinking about the officer's family who received the sad news. My mom came home and shared a scary story with me. They were trying to catch a person with a gun, but things got really complicated. The man ran towards the elementary school, shooting randomly. My mom, along with Officer Jones and other officers, had to run after him to protect the kids. The SWAT team rushed to help, trying to stop the gunman. It was a crazy situation, with officers yelling, gunshots, and the school bell ringing. In the middle of all this, my mom had to make quick decisions to keep everyone safe. As the police were getting closer to the person with the gun, he suddenly turned and started shooting in all directions. In the confusion, one of the police officers got hurt, and my mom had to switch between chasing the person with the gun and protecting the injured officer. It was a very stressful time because the kids at the school playground didn't know what was happening and kept playing. The police had to quickly move from one tree to another, trying to stop the person with the gun from getting to the school. In the middle of all the confusion, my mom was talking with other officers using her radio to make sure everyone knew what was going on. Their voices sounded scared and hurried, making the situation even more intense. Then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. A person from the neighborhood showed up. This brave person had a hunting rifle and stood ready to help the officers. It was surprising because this person, who my mom found out later was a retired Army veteran, had heard the noise and decided to join in and support them. He shot really well, making the bad guy hide. This helped the police to come together and figure out what to do next. The regular person who helped out a lot made a big difference in stopping the danger and keeping the kids at school safe. Later on, the special police team showed up, and everyone worked together to handle the problem. They got the bad guy, but unfortunately, one of the police officers got hurt and didn't make it. The brave, regular person who helped got thanks from the whole community. As my mom told me about what happened, I felt a lot of different emotions. The day was full of surprises and challenges that showed how her job can be really unpredictable. I saw how brave and helpful the police officers were, and how the people in the community supported them. It was sad that a fellow officer passed away, and that made us really sad. But we were also inspired by how everyone, including a regular person from the community, showed courage and strength. This day made us realize the dangers my mom faces when she wears her police uniform. But it also showed us how close-knit and supportive the police community and the people they serve can be. My name is Jake. I used to be a cop, but quit 10 years ago when I turned 50. Let me tell you about a moment from my 20 years on the force that I'll never forget. It was January 7, 2015, a day stuck in my memory. We got a call about a woman scared that her boyfriend wanted to hurt her. My partner, Mason, and I rushed to a house at the end of the street. The lampposts were flickering in the cold wind, and the clouds were thick in the sky. We walked up to the front door, knocked, and said, "Police, open up." No one answered, just the sound of wind chimes. Mason kicked the door because he didn't wait. We looked downstairs, made sure it was safe, and I told Mason to check upstairs. We heard someone crying softly behind a bedroom door. I thought the person should be downstairs, but I told Mason, "Let's check upstairs." "Ma'am, it's okay. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." The crying suddenly stopped, then started again. The woman inside the bedroom said, "But he's still here." We checked the whole house, but there was no one. Mason told her, "Ma'am, you're safe downstairs." Just then, the front door slammed shut, making us feel uneasy. Mason said, "It's just the wind, I think." But a voice from the bathroom asked, "Are you sure, Officer Bradley?" That night, none of us said our names out loud. Mason impatiently said to the woman, "Do you need help or not? We need to know you're okay. Step back, because I'm kicking it in." Wait, I said, trying to stay calm. "Maybe she's right next to the door. We don't want to harm her." Then she warned, "Officer Bradley, tell Mason that if he touches this door, I'll go to his family's house one night and break down a door of my own." When she said that, her voice sounded scarier. Mason looked really scared. I couldn't stop him from kicking in the bedroom door, but we didn't find anyone inside. There were no windows or other doors, but we were sure we had just talked to someone behind it. As we looked through the whole house, very carefully, Mason and I talked without saying anything. When it was time to go, we exchanged a glance and left without turning around. But there's something I haven't told anyone, not even Mason. We both felt uneasy, but I kept it to myself. As we drove back to the station, Mason's hands were shaking so much that he couldn't drive comfortably. And just so you know, he doesn't drink coffee. Mason drove away quickly without looking back at the house, but I did. I noticed a dark figure near the gate, watching us leave. It looked like someone kneeling by a garbage can. As we left, the figure stood up slowly. I still remember that it kept rising until its head was over the roof of the 2-story house. Now, here's something I haven't told anyone before. After that strange night, Mason and I felt something was off. We decided to check the history of the house. Turns out, the person who owned it before had some sketchy ties to a local gang. One day, while looking at old police reports, we discovered a link between the woman we found in the bathroom and the person who used to own the house. She had been part of some small-time criminal activities. Surprisingly, the guy we thought was her boyfriend was actually from a rival gang. Worried about facing consequences, the woman made up a whole story to bring us to the house. She needed a distraction, a reason for the rival gang to stay out of sight. This was her way of settling a dispute without directly getting involved. That's why she disappeared when we broke in. She wasn't there in the first place. I got really scared when I realized that we were unwittingly being used in someone's dangerous plan. It made me doubt everything I thought happened that night. The creepy person watching us wasn't a ghost or anything supernatural. It was probably someone from a rival group making sure their plan worked. Mason and I decided to keep this discovery a secret. We thought the less we knew about the dangerous situation, the safer we'd be. This unexpected twist showed us how complicated and dark things can get in the world of law enforcement. As the years went by, that night was a scary reminder that sometimes real-life situations can be more confusing than spooky stories.